And we are live directly from Eindhoven. Bram de Jonge from AdRoll. Hello, Bram.
Hello, hello. Thank you for having me.
So the beauty of these e-commerce summits, which are virtual, is that we have people from all over the world, and Bram is there with his girlfriend on his personal broadband connection. Hopefully, he's not going to be disconnected. Bram, to introduce him a bit, he's the principal industry manager at AdRoll. He's supporting some of the largest European advertisers with their full funnel display strategies. That means demand generation, prospecting, and retargeting, in order to properly measure the marketing impact of display advertising on the customer journey. An in-depth understanding of multi-touch attribution is required. So in this session, Bram loves to share his knowledge and experience on attribution in order to help grow your business. So measuring marketing impact, Bram, the stage is yours.
Thank you very much. Yeah, let's kick this off. As you have seen, my picture is right there, but of course I'm also in the camera. My name is Bram. I'm from the Netherlands. So for the, upcoming 30 minutes, you're probably stuck with this beautiful, heavy Dutch accent. Nothing I can do about that. Let me quickly toggle on my presenter view as well. Measuring marketing impact, that's the main topic of today. Before we dive into this, of course, it is a little bit of a weird time that we're living in. And I think the main question that a lot of the clients that we are working with are asking is like, to advertise or not to advertise at this moment. Now, I'm not a guru when it comes to finding solutions in this weird time, but looking up a lot of articles, seeing the impact, what did companies do after the recessions, for example. One of the key points that always comes back that if you want to continue your brand and want to keep growing your brand value, it is important to keep communicating with your audiences in some way. We're not going to dive into that, but it does correlate to the idea of measuring your marketing impact correctly. Because the better your understanding is of where you need to invest your marketing budget in order to grow your business and get that revenue, the better you're capable to adapt to situations like this. Now, back to the main content of the presentation, I would like to kick off with this quote from John Wanamaker. It's almost, 150, 200 years old. Half the money I spend on advertisement is wasted. And the trouble is, I don't know which half. This is something from a long time ago. John Wanamaker is one of the pioneers of the concept of marketing as we know it nowadays. And you would think that in these 200 years where a lot of technical advancement has been made, where we have much more technology in order to measure, etc., this entire feeling of where you spend your dollars on marketing efforts would be completely different. But if you look at recent reports on how companies are using technology in order to get their attribution and marketing measurement right, you actually see that less than 10% of companies are capable of properly attributing what every dollar spent is doing to their end result, revenue of the company. And that is exactly the thing where I would like to dive deep on. This is not a sales pitch about AdRoll. Feel free to drop any kind of questions later on that you have about AdRoll. The main idea here is to just give you a little bit of background so you have an idea of from which experience I'm going to speak about the topic of marketing attribution in the upcoming 25 minutes. AdRoll, we are not a small company. We have become big on offering retargeting capabilities, but we have grown much beyond. We have tens of thousands of clients worldwide, drive billions of revenue for our clients through these advertisement efforts, and we have offices in the entire world. And currently, the main offering we have is all related to display advertisement. Display for branding, but also for retargeting. We can do that on desktop, on mobile, on native web, but also on social inventory like Facebook and Instagram. And we have dynamic emailing based on the behavior that we see of visitors on your website. And we have capabilities to do programmatic video showing, real-time videos for either for branding purposes or for retargeting. How does this correlate to measuring marketing impact and especially attribution? Well, that's the fact that we do everything visual, and brands are not built on ugly visuals. And I think these kind of ads I pulled here in quite templated design of a retargeting ad for a company that is selling business shirts. And this is not truly visual attractive. And the main thing is for visuals that you need to want to make it very attractive, because the more visual you make a message, the higher the chance is that people actually will remember the message you want to get across. If I would now ask you maybe tomorrow or in 2 days, like, would you remember the products that I just showed in that retargeting ad? And probably the answer that you will give me is no. It's like you won't come any further than shirts, and you probably won't remember the brand name or the company name that was next to it. If I would add in more visual impact, for example, this background image here, you suddenly see a guy that is wearing one of the shirts, but there is a big glass of red wine being spilled on this shirt. And if I would actually tell you as well that the shirts at display here are liquid repellent, and that they are stain and odor proof, meaning that they are great business shirts, especially if you're a little bit sweaty and you want to avoid that people are seeing that. In these kind of scenarios, it really is important to focus on the visuals. In display, being seen matters. And if you think logically about it, that makes sense, of course. What is display? You show pictures to people on the internet. So the picture needs to bring over the message. It needs to communicate right. But the problem when you make a lot of visual impact with an ad, that's that it's making attribution quite a challenge. And why is that? Because visuals don't trigger direct actions. Actually, the most common direct action that marketeers like to look at are clicks. And the fact is that within display advertisement, the proportion of people that are actually clicking on ads and that use the click as the interaction with these ads is extremely limited. Only 60% of the entire impact of display advertisement is through a click. And which makes it even a little bit more tricky is that half of this percentage of clicks, or no, 85% of this volume of clicks is driven by half of this group. So what you see here is that if you would only measure on a click basis, there is only a very small portion of impact that you can actually measure. Meaning, and that leaves us with the question, okay, where can you see that 84% of additional impact? And that is a question that we have been struggling with, educating our clients with, thinking with, and evolving on throughout the many years that we have been in the display business. And that is exactly why attribution and measuring marketing impact is so important. So let's go back in time a little bit in order to get you into an understanding of measuring marketing impact, how that has evolved, and what are a couple of key items that you need to look after at this moment. First thing is that the current shopping experience has changed a lot in the last decade. Marketeers, we have always been trained on the idea of a linear customer journey, and for a very long time that has been the case, especially when the internet was just around. Online shopping was basically you get a person through a couple of media online, they go to your website, they decide what to buy, and boom, order is done. This was a kind of linear approach, but currently that's no longer the case. Instead of these 5 touch points that you normally would like to see, it's already over more than 56 touch points within a customer journey. And this is measured based from the very first time that someone landed on your website, meaning that there are even more touch points in order to get someone to the website. And what you now see is that's no longer a linear kind of path that consumers are following, but it is this growth loop, as the image is illustrating on this slide. It is a bit of a spider web of interconnected channels that are all working together during that entire customer journey in order to get someone from a completely unaware status into a purchase decision. Now, that customer journey has evolved a lot. That is what we have seen. But did the marketing measurement tool that we're currently using and the way that we attribute our impact of marketing channels actually evolve as well? And questionnaire, year over year, what you see is that marketeers absolutely want to change. Like a couple of the key items that keep coming back is marketeers, we would like to understand the customer journey. We want to make sure that we can optimize our marketing mix. And we want to make sure that we can justify all the dollars that we spend on our marketing channels. But if you look at what our marketeers actually using, then it looks like we are kind of stuck in the past. Like if you would split up all the tools that are available, you can basically split it up in a bit of a timeline. where you can see like 20 years ago when AdWords was coming up, the online advertisement was just at the start of its booming phase. It made sense to use a very easy measurement tool in order to see what is the impact of the ads that we are buying. And the click was perfectly suitable for that. The last 10 years, you see there is a little bit of movement where companies started to decide like, wait, maybe we need to get a little bit beyond that click. Maybe we should include view-through impact, the post-view impact. Maybe we should work with the combination of multiple channels. So what is the impact of the multi-channel touch points? And nowadays, you see that companies actually want to get more towards an impact era. What is the incremental impact that our marketing mix is having on overall company results? But the main tools that companies are currently using are still focused on technology that is based on that click era. Google Analytics, for example. And that is quite weird because the customer journey has evolved a lot in the last 25 years. But if you look at the technology and the reporting principles that are currently still used at mass scale, it is data. These are tools from 20 years back. It would be the same thing if you would decide to start a new company at this moment, but give all of your employees computers that are running on Windows 98. It's old school technology with very old principles and logic that you want to use in order to counter the problems and solve the problems you have nowadays. And that is, of course, a problem. If you're looking to data that is kind of old-fashioned in that sense. All transactions that are being done worldwide, 60% of that is digital. So we know that for 60% of the transactions, at least that customer journey of 56 or even more touch points is very applicable. But then looking at attribution models being used and the way we track marketing impact, 44% of companies are still using a last click attribution model. And if we then look like, does that make sense? For display, for example, it doesn't, because studies prove that there is a 0% correlation between clicks and revenue. It's not completely true. It's actually 0.001%, but I thought I could round it up to 0. That's a study done by Nielsen, but there are more hints being given by big players within the industry that the overall trend of how we should measure marketing impact should be changing. Like a couple of big companies, Procter & Gamble, L'Oreal, McDonald's, Adidas, they are publicly announcing that they need to change the way they are measuring their marketing impact, because what they have done in the past is no longer working and no longer applicable. I think Adidas is a very great case. They published, I think, October last year. They made a public announcement that they have been over-investing in their digital marketing for years and therefore lost a lot of brand value and brand potential because they were so focused on short-term results based on the reporting they had at that moment. On the other hand, also the big players like Facebook, Google, they are the main drivers, of course, in the world of advertisement. And you see that also Facebook is educating their clients. Like 90% of people who buy your products don't click on ads. There is a huge impact beyond these clicks going on. And also Google, since 2017, they are even organizing large-scale events in order to educate marketeers and advertisers on the need of going beyond last click. If you would pull this into a couple of the experiments that we have been doing at AdRoll, then we see exactly the same trend. What you see on this slide is that we have been optimizing for the same company at an equal budget, like to two goals. One goal was to hit a click-based CPA, cost per acquisition, of $50. And the other goal was like leave that completely click-based optimization but go for incrementality, go for conversions that are not going to happen otherwise. And what you would see is that we can hit that goal. We can hit that $50 CPA goal. But if you look at the targeting, you see that there is a heavily and maybe even an aggressively focus on targeting in the low funnel. A lot of marketeers identify that as the low-hanging fruit. But if you actually look at the incremental revenue and the conversion lift that is being driven there, you see negative numbers, which is meaning that marketing budget has been spent on conversions that were going to happen anyways, and therefore that budget is completely wasted. Where on the other hand, if you would say clicks are not important, but it is important to drive conversions that we would otherwise miss out on, then suddenly that click-based CPA is going through the roof. It's more than doubling. But on the positive side, you see that there is a positive lift in conversion lift, and that especially the incremental revenue that is driven with the marketing dollar spent has significantly increased versus the click-based approach. And in terms of where to target, you also see a huge difference, because for the incremental impact, you need to have more of a full funnel approach where you slowly guide people that are in the orientation discovery phase, slowly guide them in that entire process where at least these 56 touch points are involved as well, guide them to that moment where they actually would like to purchase. Now, knowing all of this information and this background, then of course the question arises, so what are then the barriers to better measurement? And the first statement I would like to make, it's probably not technology. Of course, having the resources to acquire these technologies, etc., that's another point. But in general, the technology is there. We are capable of tracking both views or impressions and clicks. We are capable of measuring out the complete conversion paths. We're capable of measuring cross-channel kind of attribution things, and we're capable of measuring different kind of attribution models at the same time. And what you see at the moment is that more and more companies arise that actually offer data-driven attribution modeling through algorithms that are trying to figure out like what channels would have had which impact on the entire customer journey. And there are plenty of companies out there. I've listed here a few. Also, AdRoll is actively working on how can we help our advertisers in order to better understand their data and make smarter decisions, not only on the display investment they probably would do with AdRoll, but also on all the other channels they have at hand. And all these channels, they are aligned to give you the power to assign credit where it is due. And of course, to not only focus on different silos you have in different marketing channels, but focus on the entire journey. And that's the main thing here. Evolve your marketing model in order to allow for that cross-channel impact. And it's not about the KPIs within the different channels, but it is about the entire marketing mix that should optimize towards a revenue or ROAS goal. So knowing that the technology itself is not really the barrier, so what are the other barriers? For the remaining part of this presentation, I would like to go to at least 6 of them. And the top 3 that are listed, that is more of like the internal company politics related topics, where the other 3 are more related to the systems and the platforms that are currently being used. First of all, internal alignment. Of course, there are in any company, especially when they become very big, or the bigger they get, the higher the likelihood that there are some company politics going on. And for the marketing department, it is very important to be very much aligned to your CFO. Because in the end, the CFO is making the financial decisions, and you want to have the CFO or anyone that is the final decision maker on the money and the resources on your side. And by making sure that you align the CFO to your marketing budget and therefore tie your marketing budget also to revenue, you make sure that he has a personal reason to be involved. And the main idea behind this is that marketing is being seen as a revenue driver within the company and not as a cost center. And I think especially in these times now with the coronavirus, you see a lot of panic happening within companies because there's a lot of uncertainty, and that of course makes complete sense. And as soon as companies start to cut costs, then probably the first department where costs are being cut is marketing. And that's mainly because the marketing part is not being seen as that revenue driver. But when you have a good understanding of where dollar spent have which impact on final numbers, then this entire story completely turns around. That also means that you need to evolve from that click area kind of approach, which is more related to old school measurement, towards a impact area kind of approach, which is related to a marketing mix optimization. And the CFO doesn't really relate to clicks, and the CFO doesn't really relate to a click-through ratio or even concepts as brand awareness. And where ROAS and a CPA or ROI probably make a little bit more sense to the financial person within your company, it is really about like understanding the incremental revenue that a marketing mix is driving and the lifetime value you can get out of your companies. These are the metrics that truly one-on-one speak to the work that a CFO is doing. Next to this alignment, it is also very important to make sure that there is time allocated and that you have to buy in from multiple levels within the company, that there is a transition happening, and that transition takes time. And what you often see is that marketeers are very eager to make a couple of changes. They got aligned to their senior management to go through this, but after a small period of time, suddenly everything is stopped and they are returning back to the former state. And that has a lot to do with the mindset that's going on. A lot of companies are working on a more of a linear thinking approach. It is that incremental thinking where small positive lifts are okay. Where if you really truly want to make a change from from an attribution model or a way of measuring and reporting well baked into the company to something completely new, that for the future and the long run would be much more beneficial. But at the moment, it could look that suddenly results are looking bad. That is extremely tricky. And overcoming this period, which you need, because you need that 6 to 12 months time of transitioning the entire organization, that is very crucial and requires this exponential kind of thinking as a mindset. Then the second pillar is lack of expertise. And that is a lack of expertise on the senior marketing side. And it's not that I'm saying that these marketeers don't understand anything about marketing. They are very good at it. But there is that lack of expertise in guiding a team and potentially an entire company into that process of change, where suddenly tools that are being used for reporting need to change. And part of the reason is that the more senior CMOs are not savvy enough, or they don't know which tools to use, or they don't feel comfortable in using other tools. That is, of course, quite a problem. And most of these senior marketeers, if you study the surveys that are being done, they know that they need to change a little bit. They know that understanding customer data and analytics in order to drive better results is extremely important. But still, there is a bit of a barrier, and the barrier has to do partly with that way of thinking, that linear kind of thinking that I was just talking about, that is too much focused on short-term goals. Sometimes even bonus kind of any kind of commission or bonus kind of reward is interfering with that idea. It's more safe to focus on short-term small lifts than really change something around that can have a massive impact in the long run, but that might probably not look that good in the short term. Then, of course, also that simply the right tools are not there. And simply because they are not there, they decide, okay, then we stick to what we are used to. It might also be the reason that from a senior level, there is too much focus on business operations instead of how can we actually improve the marketing in order to drive more revenue for our companies. And there are so many marketing teams where I see that it is more important to build beautiful spreadsheets. And I love beautiful spreadsheets, don't get me wrong. But of course, building out these spreadsheets is not necessarily building a better company. And the marketing team should be more focused on the creativity part and how to get the products or services into the market in the right way than building these kind of operational improvements. And then, of course, there is also, especially for the extremely senior CMOs, that they rely more on their instinct and on their experience from the past, and that they are truly looking at the data and the arguments they're presenting at this moment, and that demand a little bit of change and a turnaround. Then the last part is lack of resources. Of course, if you want to measure better, there are platforms and there is technology available, but that will, of course, cost money. And you not only need to have the alignment from the CFO there, but you also need to get the CFO convinced to allocate these resources. And anything resources here, that shouldn't really come from a marketing budget. It should more come from a business operation kind of point of view. It's improvements in a supply chain that have a positive effect on the overall income of the company are just as important as properly measuring your marketing mix. But then the question, do you really have that buy-in at the moment? If you see that 39% of CFOs have confidence in marketing making good commercial decisions, and 36% thinks that marketing should own financial decisions, you could doubt that a little bit. And then actually 7% of CFOs are capable of quantifying their return on marketing spend. If you just turn around these numbers, it starts to look like this, meaning that at least 2/3 of the CFOs think that marketing is not really capable of making commercial decisions and is not capable of having these strategic financial decisions, which is, of course, very bad for your alignment, because you need to flip this around in order to get that alignment, because you want to prove that marketing is having a positive impact on sales, of course. And the CFOs don't really care as well, because they currently don't see that impact. And that is one of the reasons where, in like critical times as we live in at this moment, marketing is probably the first department where budgets are being cut, which could have a huge impact on brand value, for example, and market share that you would have over 2 or 3 years maybe. So summing up all of the 3 pillars that we had so far, it is important to build the CFO into your marketing. You actually want to make sure that the CFO is probably one of your most important marketeers within the team. And in order to do that, you need to speak the right language. It's no longer about a CPC or a CPM or a CTR of an ROI, of a ROAS on a channel based. It is about revenue, growth, incremental return on investment, and how that relates to the marketing mix you have in place. In order to do so, you can use a AAA system. Build a common agenda, agree on what you can afford, and be accountable for results. Make sure that the CFO is involved there and can keep on reminding this person on the arguments that are being met. Now, of course, something for all marketeers around here, it's very important that you should never shut off your creative side. Like having that creative impact, that's all what's marketing about. So we can speak about data and alignment, etc., but it's still, marketing should still be that creative part of the company that is going to put the products or services into the market. Never forget that in whatever you're doing. Then moving more to the platform kind of side and the technology kind of side. First of all, we have vendors. And it could be the case that you're currently working with a vendor that simply doesn't suit what you're looking for. And especially for attribution or anything measurement related, that relates to these kind of companies that work with a so-called black box. You don't actually have access to the data that you need. You don't know completely what is going on in the background. Not having access to your data is probably the worst thing you can have in order to get a more data-driven approach into your measurement and attribution. So I took here an example for display. If you're using display for retargeting or branding, you want to make sure that you have the insights of your campaign data, but you also want to make sure that you have the control in order to act on these data insights. Do you see your ads having a too high frequency? Are you capable of changing that frequency, yes or no? And then, of course, the creative freedom, it completely relates to the last argument I made 2 slides ago. If you're not capable of pushing out the message in that visual way that completely suits your brand, then you need to start looking for another platform that can actually do so. The second part is that we're currently quite locked in a very old ecosystem when it comes to attribution. And one of the main players there is the use of last click attribution. Studies from Wharton University, they prove that last click attribution leads to channel serving ads to people that essentially already have converted, just to get that credit in place. And it makes sense. If you have a customer journey where only one channel is involved, then one click is probably directly related to the impact of that channel. But the more channels you add, the more you drive companies and platforms in order to get that very last touch point. And when you have 56 touch points and there are multiple channels all hunting for that very last touch point, then you get a very weird kind of incentive to only look after the people that have the highest probability to convert. And is targeting visitors with the highest probability to convert actually the audience you want to reach? Is that where you can make the most incremental impact? And the answer to that is no. It's the audience that have the most impact are the people that have the highest probability to potentially convert. They have a high probability to walk away if you don't act on that. And that is exactly the group you would like to target with your marketing mix.
Bram, we need to get a bit faster because there are 40 minutes and we are behind the schedule.
Then we will go faster. We're almost there. Thanks.
Okay.
To visualize my last argument, if you would give a big bag of money to marketeers 50 years ago, you give them the option, either target the people on the right, they are queuing up at the checkout and they have already made a selection of the products they would like to use, or target the people on the left side. They are walking on the street, they pass your store, and they are not yet interested in. I'm 100% sure that marketeers will choose to invest their budget on the right-hand side scenario. But what we're doing with last click kind of optimization is we go for the left-hand side scenario. It is targeting this guy. We don't even care about the two people standing behind it. Only when this person has converted and we have aggressively targeted and made sure that we are the last touch point, then the other person becomes relevant. And then the person after becomes relevant. And that leads to the conclusion from Wharton University in that same study that last click is actually just a incentive for marketing platforms to create a race and try to cheat an advertiser out of money. And that ecosystem, as long as we're still using a last click model for attribution, is kept in place, and we need to break through that. Of course, the last pillar is regarding to platforms and technology. Keep an eye on sunk costs. If you have currently a platform that's not working for you, sometimes you just need to make the decision that you need to get rid of it, because you don't want to end up with that lost opportunity and you need to move forward. And speaking of moving forward, let's summarize what we have seen. We have seen that there are so far 6 barriers that are preventing a lot of companies to move into proper marketing measurement. And in order to get ahead of the pack, you need to know that the customer journey has changed. We have seen that there are many, many more touch points and marketing channels at place. Therefore, we also know that there is that need to change your marketing concept in order to make sure that you're measuring correctly. And the technology is there. It's just a matter of really making sure that you can align the right people within your company in order to start integrating that technology. So if you take this in mind, you can be ahead of the pack, and it's always better to lead the way than to follow far behind. Thank you very much.
Thank you as well, Bram de Jonge from Eindhoven. Thanks a lot for being part of eCommerce Growth Summit. And for you out there, if you have questions for Bram, I will steal 10 more minutes from him and get him on our Slack group channel. And for the rest of you, you are waiting in the next chapter of our story with Brian Massey, the conversion scientist, which is going to talk about how to inject data into the design process. Thanks a lot and see you there.
Bye-bye.
As an e-commerce manager, you want to stop spending money on expensive ads. OmniConvert Explore helps you improve conversion through A/B testing, personalization, and surveys. Understand that growth is also a matter of retention, not only acquisition. With OmniConvert Reveal, you'll understand segments, monitor customer experience, and nurture your customers on every channel.